rather be the best at speaking every language or be the best at playing every instrument? Why? Story 1 language. If it's every language, it means I could speak dead languages and translate some of the oldest texts in the world. That would be super cool. Story 2, as a professional translator with musical aspirations. This is one of the hardest questions for me. Obviously, the languages would make me the most useful person in the office and ID be set for life. But being able to play every instrument has been a dream of mine since I was a kid, and it would allow me to make all the music I've always wanted to but didn't know anyone with the right skills and interests. Story 3, ooh, that's tough. Speaking every language would be so amazing because you could communicate with literally anyone. You could talk to anyone on the whole planet. And I bet you could also get a fantastic, well-paid job with that skill, but I don't like people all that much. I do find it much more personally satisfying to be able to play any instrument. How amazing it would be to be able to express myself with any instrument that exists. You could also be a musician, and that would be way better for me than being an interpreter. So I do have to go with that. Story 4, the best at every instrument, meaning I'm actually the most skilled musician of every instrument in the world. That is infinitely more valuable than whatever the best at every language means. I could hire private tutors and translators with all the cash ID be rolling in. Edit, all y'all are imagining ID use music skills to be in a crappy pop or rock band. You have any idea how much you'd be paid to be the premier instrumentalist in the best symphony orchestra in the world and being able to switch to any instrument needed? You pick languages, and there's no way you're not working for a government somewhere dealing with confidential info every day. You can go right ahead and pick that one. Story 5, the best at speaking a language. Aren't those the great orators, poets, and writers? If they do not have mastery of language, I do not know who could call themselves more qualified. To be a master at all languages, to be able to speak to all people, to be the greatest polyglot, polymath author and speaker, who would not want such ability? Also, would probably be fun to be a voice actor because, again, best at speaking languages. Story 6, language, so I can make money interpreting. Edit, I prefer to learn languages. I know how to speak several already, and I can't carry a note on any instrument. I'm sure that you can make a ton of money playing music, but it's not something I'm interested in doing, so calm your... Story 7, just being the best at speaking my own language would be fantastic. Best at every language out there. Count me in. Bonus, what about programming languages? Story 8, speaking every language, because then if two people are talking about me in a different language, I can humiliate them by telling them I understood every word. Story 9, ID rather be the best at playing every instrument. First off, the music you could create would be unbelievable. Secondly, the feeling of connection you get with others when you see them vibing to your music is unrivaled. It's like the greatest high in the world without any of the negative consequences of drugs. And making people feel good is so rewarding. It's sad that so many people that pick this mention how they could monetize it. Of course, everyone needs money, but there's so much more to music than money or fame. I would choose this power even if I never made any money from it. Story 10, there are over 7,000 languages in the world. And if you're the best at speaking all of them, you would probably be considered a genius. Not to say you wouldn't be a prodigy being a master of the 1,500 instruments, but knowledge of language and by extension culture is way more impressive in my eyes. Story 11, people don't recognize how insane a power would be to be the best at speaking every language would be. Let me say this, that I am no musician and I have very little to speak about knowledge of musical instruments. But in my opinion, language represents vastness that we do not clearly comprehend. And what about languages of animals? Would that also be included? Holy, now you have a superpower. Who cares? You can play the piano, drums, guitar, flute, or whatever. You would be a superhuman who would be of invaluable service. And even just without the animal languages, it would still be a superhuman feat. Languages have so much nuances and depth to them that one can dedicate several lifetimes and still could barely start to understand a handful of them. To be able to speak the tens and thousands of languages across globe, for me the answer is clear, what I do want, which I am sure the musicians of Reddit would disagree with, for which I am willing to hear arguments. But for me the answer is easy. Story 12, language. Being able to speak every language would be way more convenient, and you could talk every language, including ones that haven't been spoken in hundreds of years. I find learning instruments is way easier than a new language, so that also adds in a reason for my choice. Imagine waking up one day and you could speak Latin or order Big Smoke's order in Japanese. That would be awesome, right? Story 13, language. Not only because I love to travel, but when you come across someone who doesn't think they're going to be able to communicate in a certain situation, and then all of a sudden someone is able to communicate with them, the light on their eyes will warm your heart for a long time. Story 14, if you were the best at every instrument, people from around the world would come to see you, You could own mansions all over the world if you wanted. Story 15. Oh, that's easy. I would love to be the best at playing every instrument. Everyone understands music, and it comes with the upside of being able to make lots of money. Story 16. Speak every language. I would assume that it makes me think in a different language too. It's just like another world, and connection with others is different if you know a different language. Story 17. I prefer language because of the ability to be a translator and travel to any country. Plus, I'll never have to wonder if the girls at the nail salon are talking bad about me again. Story 18. Instruments for sure. I live in America and speak English, and I still barely talk to anybody. If I spoke Spanish and lived in Spain, I doubt that would change much, lol. Story 19. Instruments. In my job, I have found that everybody can understand music to some degree, but not everybody understands spoken language regardless of which language. Story 20. Issues, questions. With the playing every instrument option, it reads as if you'll become the most technically competent musician, but you still have to know what sounds cool, what people will want to hear. You might be able to master major and minor scales in milliseconds and punch out perfect paradiddles with precision. But that doesn't make a hit song. I can see it now. You drop a technically flawless masterpiece, some 12-year-old on TikTok calls it tryhard LMAO, and now your song's a laughingstock. Also, few musical acts appeal across the board. You'll likely pigeonhole yourself into a genre or two. Rap hip-hop is more spoken word than instrumental, especially hip-hop. Do your powers help here, or are genres that don't require live instrumentation total pass? Will you have a backing band of any kind? If so, they'll be your weakest link, obviously. It might be a neat gimmick if you played the all-lead and backing tracks on your songs. But will people necessarily like that compared to more traditional setups? What will live shows be like? Will you be freaking exhausted by having to be all parts of the band at all times? There's a reason people make a living writing songs for others to perform. So you might end up being one of those people paid to perform someone else's work, and that may or may not lead to vast riches. At that point, you might just be a top-flight session musician. You're the best on earth, but you still have to grind out all those tunes. Does your group have a singer? If so, you're probably not going to outshine that lead singer no matter how competent you are, if you care about that sort of thing. Of course, on the other hand, knowing languages isn't performance art. It's not subjective, bound to the whims of taste. You could likely always find high-paying, albeit maybe not exciting freelance work anywhere in the world, offering flawless translations to the medical, legal, business, or government fields alone. As others have mentioned, you could travel the world and fit in comfortably anywhere. So even leisure time and post-retirement life see some benefits. As of right now, ID lean languages. Story 21. If I could fully communicate in any language, then that. But if I could only speak it and not understand, read, or write it, I would choose the instruments. Story 22. If I could speak every language, I could be the go-between for every country and be the perfect diplomat. I would dedicate my life to negotiating peace between nations. But that sounds like a lot of work. It'll take the instruments and set the world on fire as a one-man band. Story 23. Definitely best at playing every instrument. I'd even take best at playing any instrument, because music is the universal language and portrays the ineffable languages, so I can watch foreign TV shows and not need subtitles. Story 24. If you had the ability to be the best, basically flawless speaking comprehension of all human languages, the money you can make from that would be absurd. Take that over being an exceptional instrument player. There's already exceptional instrument players of pretty much every instrument. Doubt that you would be able to garner more praise recognition than the currently respected ones to make money out of it. Story 25. 100 the best at playing every instrument. Sure, you could travel the world and have conversations with people in their foreign tongue, but with instruments you literally fuse together your souls. Entirely different experience. Plus, I don't remember the last time a polyglot was considered a language god. Story 26. Speaking every language. I could travel everywhere, interact with everyone, watch hentai without stopping to read subtitles. You only need to play one instrument to impress people. Story 27. Instrument. Musicians get laid more often than linguists, and music is more universal than any tongue. Also, I'm already pretty good at languages, speak 4 well, and another 2 to a decent degree, and had decided it would be better if we all kept quiet more often because most of what we say is bullshit. Language lies, music doesn't. Story 28. Well, this comes with some interesting caveats. If you speak every language, you'd most likely start recognizing languages you spoke with profound existential consequences, languages spoken on other planets, maybe even other dimensions. You know every fictional language as it was made. You might even recognize the development of a new species somewhere deep in the cosmos. You'd speak pig and cat and dolphin and whale. You might speak angelic and prove the existence of God, or the language of an entirely different pantheon, disproving every major world religion. So, language, duh. You would know these things because to be a master of a language, you have to understand the context and definition of words well enough to use them correctly and precisely, telling you a whole lot about a culture. Instruments, music is my passion, and being the best, I'd be able to make an EO by myself and make money doing what I love. Am okay learning languages little by little. Story 29, every instrument. It takes the average adult a few weeks, months to learn a language well enough to travel without a guide. To master one instrument means to spend decades of your life to even get to that point. If I knew every instrument, I'd just get Rosetta Stone or Duolingo or some other language app and travel the world that way. Story 30, every language. Some instruments are easier to learn, and I'd have more time to learn them, since I'd have more time now that I don't need to worry about languages anymore. Story 31, instruments. There are only so many situations where you will need most languages if you speak English, and maybe a couple other like French, Spanish, Mandarin, and/or Arabic. You're good to go pretty much anywhere. Story 32, languages. I would be able to talk to my students in their own languages. I teach ESL. I've already picked up a bit of Russian. Also, I could help out with the efforts of some Native American tribes and make dictionaries for their dying languages. It would also be cool to interpret the Voynich manuscript. Story 33, ID, pick language. I love communication and deeply understanding concepts and perceptions. ID, find a way to build an empire and then learn how to play instruments. Story 34, ID, rather be better at each instrument, as I feel I would be able to be more creative in what I wanted to express than being able to redo the same idea in different languages. Story 35, would every language included animals? Because if it does, then I choose animals. I could convince every dog in the neighborhood to attack the school for a day off. Story 36, if you were the best at speaking every language, then you could unite the world, best lawyer, best storyteller, best motivational speaker. You could give speeches that could change the course of history in all languages. Story 37, I might even surpass Mozart if I had that ability. I'm an artist with a degree in English philology, so this question seems aimed at me anyways. Hand down, I'd go for every instrument, because I've always wanted to play guitar and cello. Now if I could play any instrument that I wanted, it would save so much studio time, money, and you could do whatever you wanted with your music. Story 38, language. Music is language. It can be written and used as a form of communication. Playing an instrument is merely motor function. It can be more, but a 3-year-old plucks a string and he's playing Get Me Language. Knowledge and understanding. Story 39, political science major. So you can probably imagine it'd be beneficial for me to be able to speak every language when I get into politics in a few years. Story 40, on one hand, I have a lot of friends who don't speak English very well, so I'd rather speak Hebrew, so we can communicate better, but also I want to be really good at music. Story 41, speaking every language. The sheer amount of news, politics, and culture I'd be able to absorb would be incredible, and the fact that I could go anywhere and speak the language would be sweet. Story 42, every language. Obviously, I've always wanted to understand everyone around me and communicate with everyone. Also, one of the beautiful parts of playing an instrument is practicing the songs systematically. Thank you for attending my TED Talk. Story 43, language. Learning a language fluently takes way longer than learning to play an instrument decently. And if you own the instrument, you can practice anytime. You can't have native speakers of every language at your beck and call to practice with. Learning languages will make traveling much easier and also be useful in the workforce with pretty much every job, especially sign language in every country. You can also watch or read media in those other languages without having to depend on translations, which is another plus. Story 44, a lot of jobs don't require you to speak more than one language, but it would look really good on your resume if you can. Now imagine if you could speak literally every language ever written. You could virtually get a job anywhere, assuming you fit the rest of the requirements. Also, if I'm not mistaken, being a translator for famous people pay very well. Story 45, as Uterdactyl 87 said, language, if it's every language, it means I could speak dead languages and translate some of the oldest texts in the world. That would be super cool. Story 46, truth is, right now Google Translate is giving translators a run for their money. I would have to go with playing any instrument in the world. Music transcends all barriers. Story 47, definitely play every instrument because, in the words of the most excellent Stevie Wonder, music is a world within itself with a language we all understand, with an equal opportunity for all to sing, dance, and clap their hands. Story 48, I gotta go instruments. Partially because I enjoy my struggle to learn more languages, but also it doesn't specify musical instruments. Becoming the most talented surgeon or lab tech sounds cool. Do I understand the data? Probably not, but damn can I get results. Story 49 ID, be the best at speaking every language. That way I can talk to a Japanese person and deaf person at the same time. Then use this power to tell the one person I hate most to go away as harshly as I can in every language. Story 50, I want to know every language so I can travel the world and talk to different people from around the globe and also ace my grade for my second language. Story 51 language. That way living in any country isn't an issue, plus I can converse with so many different people around the world. Also ID be so fluent that people would question whether I was actually born in the country or not, which adds an extra level of fuckery. Story 52, how anyone in the world would choose languages over musical instruments is beyond me. Most of the world speaks English. You can learn a few more just as a normal person putting in a mild amount of effort. The best musician of every instrument. That would just be the most amazing thing in the world. Story 53, speaking every language. That would be so awesome to be able to communicate to people in their native language and would lead to better exchanges and chats. Story 54, being able to effectively communicate with every human on Earth who know any sort of dialect is a way more useful skill than knowing how to play effectively thousands of instruments, especially when only a few of them are needed for the most popular styles of music today. Besides, knowing how to compose, mix, sing, or rap is a much more needed skill in order to be successful in the music industry than being amazing at playing the didgeridoo. Story 55, being able to speak every language will only make people think this guy is smart, while being the best at playing every instrument will make me famous in no time, and I could start off a whole new career. Definitely the instrument. Story 56, this is a bit of a tough one for me. Does the language option let me read that language as well? Does it include languages that are no longer spoken? And do any of those compare to finally figuring out what the didgeridoo is? Story 57, speaking and understanding every language would unlock an incredible understanding of different cultures and empathetic thinking. I'd be a better human with that kind of power. Story 58, music is a sort of universal language, and there are so many instruments from so many different cultures. As a musician, I'd definitely choose to master every instrument. Story 59, playing every instrument would be more fun. Speaking every language seems more practical to me, but I don't really travel much, so I probably wouldn't make use of every language anyways. Story 60, language, you can get some unique and rewarding jobs or scholarships with this talent, and unlike language, you can't play every instrument at the same time. Also, understating ancient languages would be hella useful and would get you more famous and richer than any musician MO. Story 61, I can honestly never understand why someone would pick instrument. I mean, yes, it would be so awesome to play instruments, but speaking every freaking language on Earth, how can you not choose that? Story 62, language. I work with all kinds of people. My lab is majority Indian from various regions. This alone creates a language barrier with 3 languages between them. Then there's Spanish, etc. Everyone speaks some degree of English, but there's plenty that gets lost in translation. Beyond that, I would love being able to pretend I don't speak English to avoid talking to strangers. Traveling would be easier. Moral of the story is, while the degree of mastery is likely impossible, mastering a language or instrument is within possibility for every Redditor to make progress in either choice entirely on their own. Story 63, I'm surprised so many people are saying language. There's only like 3 to 4 that you would really need to be successful in business. I feel like so many would go to waste. Being someone with no musical ability who loves music, being able to create a symphony alone would be so fun and rewarding. It's not even a competition. Story 64. Well, it's impossible to be the best at playing instruments. However, I would prefer to be able to play all instruments fantastically. I'd be able to create pure creative work. Must be amazing. Story 65. Every language. Being the best at playing every instrument is cool and all, but how many of them are you really going to play? Are you going to buy every instrument? Dedicate your life to music with fluency in every language? I could freely communicate with anyone in the world. That's almost a superpower. Story 66, musical instrument, because then I could do that as a career, which is more fun than what I do now. Also, I've never been musically inclined and didn't have the patience every time I tried. It would be nice to see what it was like. Story 67, musical instrument. Do you know how much you get? Chicks don't care if you can speak their language. Trust me, I was on the Eddie Van Halen and the Eddie Van Halen band tour in '87. Woo. Story 68, every language, because I could communicate in every country in the world. Even if I played just one instrument, I would still be able to play music with every orchestra in the world. Story 69, you'll be favored because you can speak someone's home language. They'll appreciate it Plus, a higher paying job would hire you if you can talk to clients that speak a different language. Story 70 language for sure. I already know music and play 4 to 5 instruments. And let me tell you, the language of music is the same on every instrument. The only difference is how you move your fingers or blow the hole. So if you play flute, you can pick up a clarinet, even if you never played one, and probably get it going within an hour. If you play guitar, you can learn ukulele in an hour or so. No violin, you can learn cello real fast. I actually watched a trombone player try tuba for the first time. He had it going within seconds. Then a trumpet player gave it a shot. He also had it going decent pretty quickly, not as good as the trombonist, and so on and so forth. So learning every instrument is honestly not that hard. I mean, it's definitely a lot, but learning 5 or 6 instruments is certainly doable, and once you know 5 or 6, the rest can be learned pretty quickly. But learning every language, wow, that's just like decades and decades of work. Story 71 instrument. I feel like I would lose most skill in a language if I never spoke it. The same goes with instruments, but I'd be more fun to pick them up and learn from nothing but my brain. Story 72 ID, rather be the best at speaking every language. Music puts harmony and peace into the soul, but personally I would use my newfound power to travel the world. Story 73, would playing every instrument also come with the ability to write and compose music? That would be the determining factor for me. Who cares if I can play the bassoon la God? If the only original thing I can write is a Twinkle Twinkle Little Star remix, I'd rather speak Latin. Story 74 instruments. I love languages, but music just speaks to me way more. It's emotional and artistic. And, well, if you like music, you know what I mean. Being a beginner pianist, I'd absolutely love being able to play all those wonderful yet insanely hard pieces out there. And I would not just be able to play everything I could ever want to play on the piano, but on any instrument, I'd be able to produce and create my own music. By the way, in almost every case, English is enough to understand each other. Story 75 best at playing every instrument. While being able to speak every language would be awesome, with the instruments you could become very wealthy and not to mention rock the FK out. Story 76 languages. I traveled to Japan from the US a few times without knowing a lick of Japanese. It was frustrating as I'm fascinated by the culture. I also wish to travel to Korea, Italy, and China at least once in my lifetime.